Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video I've got probably the prettiest game I've ever seen in my entire life. I think it's really pretty and I won't waste any time. Let's take a look at this. It's Yasser Seirawan with white versus Anatoly Karpov, and Yasser opens with knight f3 and Karpov just symmetrically responds knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, and after d5, well, technically white can still delay playing d4 because that transposes into the main lines of 1d4, which is probably what Yasser didn't mind doing because that's what he did. He played 1d4, he played 4d4, and now we have transposed into the main lines of the queen's pawn opening, 1d4. And Anatoly Karpov just plays bishop e7, so it's going to be a queen's gambit decline, one of the most popular openings both at the top level and at the very grassroots levels. And here there are really three main moves. You can play cd5, you can try bishop f4, or you can go for the move that was played by Yasser, bishop g5. A very decent move, reasonable. Nowadays it's not the most critical move, but it's of course a playable move. h6, the main move, pretty much the only move. And here, if I'm not wrong, Timur Rajabov has been playing bishop f6 a lot, and he's been doing okay with it, I believe. But the main line, bishop h4, castles, and in this position the main move would be e3, very natural. And if I'm not wrong, then black would have, I think, a few different options. The main one would be b6, and another very interesting and very solid option is knight e4, which is the Lascar. Very reasonable choices. But instead Yasser goes rook c1, not the main move, very decent, very reasonable. Karpov responds with b6, very natural. He takes in the center, knight takes, everything gets traded off. And we reach this position where Yasser chooses that he's going to continue developing with g3. And now Karpov plays a move which is far from a brilliancy, but it's just, I kind of like the move. He plays rook e8. I like it because now, of course, bishop g2 is possible, but once you play bishop g2, you can't really castle anytime soon because of the hanging e2 pawn. So I kind of like this move, rook e8, and there's actually a game played all the way back in 1984 between Vasily Smyslov and Lajos Portish, and that game went bishop a6, e3, c5, and after queen a4, rook c8, knight e5, queen e6. I believe after rook c3, the game Smyslov-Portish went rook d8, which in the end Smyslov won with white. But in 1995, Artur Yusupov, playing Nigel Short, played the move cd4, and he managed to draw the game. Or I beg for your forgiveness if that sounded a little weird, right? cd4 was played by Nigel Short against Artur Yusupov, not by Artur Yusupov against Nigel Short. But anyways, let's get back to the game. Yasser had a very interesting idea. He played the move rook c3, which is a rather weird move. But then when you see the point that, again, bishop g2, castles, your queen is stuck defending the pawn. Because as soon as, let's just go back to bishop g2, bishop a6, and let's say you castle, right? And I don't know, black plays c5. Now you can never move the queen, right? Because your pawn on e2 hangs. I take with probably the bishop or the queen, doesn't matter, but the pawn is hanging. Probably with the bishop. But either way, the pawn hangs. Which is exactly why Yasser comes up with this idea of rook c3. And the point is that he'll put the rook on e3, and he's defending the e2 pawn. Which is why Karpov now goes for a very interesting move here. He goes for the move knight a6. And the reasoning behind putting the knight on this very awkward square is that he wants to play c5, and after you take back on c5, he takes back with the knight. So it's a weird move, but it makes some sense. For example, if white plays a little inaccurately with a3, for example, black just plays c5 and he's in a great position. Which is why Yasser plays queen a4, again, in keeping with his idea that soon enough he's going to play rook e3. And if you go back a few months from this game, in this exact position, Anatoly Karpov plays the move pawn to c5 against Yasser Seirawan just a few months before this game, and he loses after rook e3 because actually if he moves his queen, then suddenly his rook hangs because it's attacked twice. Which is why he had to play bishop e6, and after queen a6, well, Yasser is an entire piece up, and he went on to win the game. Which is exactly why Karpov came up with a brand new idea, and I think this is the beginning of the genius of Anatoly Karpov. Karpov plays the move b5. I could not understand it at first, but if you look at some variations, you start to see that this is just a stunning idea. So if I show you the most natural move, right? Take the pawn. Rook b8, take the pawn. I mean, why not? Rook b2. And now there are some threats of rook takes, yeah? Because followed by checkmate on e2. So white defends the e2 square with queen c4. Rook b1 check, rook c1. And now we play a calm little move, bishop e6, with another tempo on the queen. The queen moves away. And now we just trade the rooks, put the bishop on d5. And now we're again threatening to just take the knight, and you're all pinned up, and you can't move the knight because your rook hangs back there. So queen e3. But now after queen b4 check, I mean, the position is completely lost. The queen is hanging. If you play queen d2, well, we could win in 100 different ways. Maybe the simplest is to just take this, because you can't take back because of the pin. And yeah, black wins. So queen takes b5 is probably not the most accurate move. And if you try something like queen a3, just b4 is completely winning. And so in the game, Yasser tried queen a5, an interesting idea. And if Anatoly Karpov blunders with c5, then he again runs into some rook e3, where he is going to be in some trouble once again. Which is why he goes queen e4, a very nice idea. And now he's simply threatening check, and then maybe picking up a pawn as well. So Yasser gets out of the way. He plays king d2. And here is probably one moment where Karpov could have done something special. He could have probably gone queen b1, which was probably best. And then after white takes a pawn, he could have probably tried this very interesting move c6, sacrificing the pawn, with the point that after you take, you just blundered because bishop f5, and all of black's pieces are playing. This bishop can't move. White's pieces are in a fix. Rook c8 is coming up next, and followed by taking on c3 probably, and queen c2 check. This is a very sticky situation for white, which is why probably this was a slightly better option, but he went for rook e6, which is reasonable as well. And probably here, if Yasser plays rook e3, the game continues, because after something like queen b1, by the way, if you take this rook, you're completely worse because you lose a pawn over there, right? You just lost a pawn for nothing. Which is why you have to find the move queen a3, defending this pawn, which is by no means an easy move to spot, especially in a game, a rapid game that too. And after all computer lines, apparently white's slightly better, and apparently it does seem like white is a little better, but I don't think black's terribly worse here, but white's slightly better. However, in the game, Yasser Seirawan played the move b3, which is a blunder. Not easy to punish, but it's a blunder. Why did he play this move? If you remember, after rook e3, queen b1, you can't take this rook because you lose a pawn, right? And then black takes the rook back, which is exactly why he goes b3. And his point is now that if ever queen b1 is played, there is no queen takes b2 anymore because the pawn is defended. The problem is that Karpov just plays b4. And now you have a bit of an issue with white. For example, if you go rook c1, black plays bishop d7. And let's just take a second here. This queen has no squares, yeah? It can't go anywhere. The rook on e6 does a good job defending that knight. The queen is paralyzed. The rook is useless. The bishop can't move because e2 is hanging. The knight can't move because the rook is hanging. And black's pieces are just 100 times better. Probably rook b8, rook b5 is also trapping that queen on a5. This would be a disaster, which is why instead of this, Yasser plays probably what he had thought he's going to play. He plays rook e3, and now queen b1. And probably Yasser saw this position and thought that, I mean, he doesn't have queen takes b2 check, so after rook e6, queen b2 check, king d1, Karpov takes on e6, and the position is completely fine. This is probably what Yasser was thinking, because on the one hand, his queen is terrible, his pieces are not developed, his king is a bit unsafe, but black can't do anything about this right now. There is no immediate way for black to take advantage of this. And since he doesn't have an immediate way to do anything about it, e6 is weak, c7 is technically weak, b4 is weak. So in the long term, white actually might be better. This is probably what Yasser was hoping for. But in this position, Karpov said, you know what, I don't need my knight on a6, do I? And he just takes the rook. And after queen a6, Yasser is one whole piece up. He's an entire knight up. And Karpov has given up this piece, hoping to get a winning attack on this king. But is it so simple? What if you play your most natural move, right? Bishop f5. Oh my god, queen c2 check. It's not going to be checkmate, and it's not going to win. It's actually just going to lose for black, because white simply plays the move queen c6, covering everything. In a game, I guarantee you, by now, I would have lost the game, because I would have played bishop f5. I would not have found sacrifice, first of all, and even if I found it, I would have played bishop f5, and boom, I'm lost. But Karpov is a former world champion, and one of the best ones at that, and he finds a very, very nice maneuver. He plays queen a1 check, king d2, queen c3 check, and you note the small difference now is that the queen covers the c6 square, so there's no more any queen c6. And now after bishop f5, this is looking very scary for white. Yeah, the king is he's not very happy, and he's kind of, I mean, the king is really lazy, right? It does nothing, it just sits there, it doesn't help anyone, it can only move one square and in danger, but it's shouting at its knight, its bishop, its rook, and even its own queen. What are you doing? I'm unprotected, you know? But sadly, there's nothing anyone can do to help the queen, especially when the black player is Anatoly Karpov. Here, white could have tried e3, but Karpov would have probably played this very nice move, bishop e4, instead of immediately going, you know, because let's face it, right? After queen c2 check, king here, what are you doing? Yeah, what are you doing next? Here, you come here. Where is the checkmate? There is no one move checkmate, which is why black has to go for this brilliant move, bishop e4. And there's nothing that white can do. Just to demonstrate the power of Karpov's position, if you try bishop g2, bishop d3 wins, yeah? Because this queen is in a bit of trouble, and there's a mate here, yeah? You come here, and here it's mate. So you can't just defend the knight. If you try bishop e2, then bishop c2 check, king c1, bishop d3 wins the queen, probably checkmate. Definitely checkmate. Another possibility is possibly queen e2, but then we get a bit creative. Queen a1, king d2, queen b2, king d1, queen b1. If you try this, I'm going to start improvising. I suspect that this wins, yeah? You hang your rook in the end. Which is why king d1, queen b1, king d2, and now we finally get... Actually, yeah, I didn't do much improvising because this is kind of the same stuff. Black wins. Long story short, whatever white does, black wins. Which is why Yasser tried the move knight e1, directly defending the c2 square. And now, you're the black player. You sacrificed a piece. Your pawn structure is questionable. How do you win this? How do you win this? You obviously involve your last piece. Your last piece is your rook, because your bishop's attacking, your queen's attacking. I apologize if there's some background noise. It's basically, there are a few pigeons there who are kind of making an absolute mess. And hopefully they don't affect my video. If they do, then I don't think I can do much about it. Rook b8, very nice move, very natural as well. Just going rook b6, rook c6, queen c1 checkmate. Chess is so simple when you're Anatoly Karpov. Queen takes a7, rook b6, e3, and now he goes rook c6. And of course, there's no way to stop mate. Yeah, I mean, even if you go back a gazillion moves in this position, there's nothing. I mean, how in God's name do you stop this? This is just coming. You can't do anything about it. e3, rook c6, this mate can't be stopped unless you're Yasser Seirawan and you say, I'm just going to sacrifice my bishop to stop the mate. But let's face it, even if you give up a bishop, technically you're not worse, right? Because you've you've grabbed Karpov's knight, but you've given back your bishop. Here I like this moment from Karpov. He plays a very, very clever piece sortie. He plays Queen A1 check, King E2, sorry, Queen B2, and you may think that this did nothing, but it made a small, significant improvement in the position of the queen. Now after King D1, actually wait a second, let me show you King F1 first, right, because this is a possibility. Bishop H3 check, Knight G2, then we just go Rook F6, right, and it's game over. King G1 as well, Rook F6, it's game over, which is why you have to go to D1. And here is what Karpov had in mind. He just sacrifices his rook. And you may be thinking, wait a second, how did he do that? He just took a bishop. Well, there is Queen A8 check. And after this, you lose your bishop. And if I take you back to the position where Karpov played Queen A1 check and Queen B2 check, let's say, right, Karpov gets all creative and he just does this immediately. Yeah, he sacks it. If he immediately sacks it, then apparently there's no difference. I thought there was a difference, but apparently there isn't. So, well, probably Karpov can do anything he wants. He chooses to do this nice queen sortie. I thought there was a reason. I'm pretty certain I thought there was, but apparently there isn't. DC4, Queen A8, King H7, Queen C6. You're down a rook now, but it doesn't really matter because he just plays C3. You see the difference now, don't you? You see the difference now. Wait a second. The queen on C3 would have not allowed us to play C3, which is why, yeah, now it starts to make sense again. Yes, exactly. When in this position, if you don't go for Queen A1 check and you just take the pawn immediately, then there's no pawn to C3. But after this very clever queen sortie, I guess that's what they say, yeah, queen sortie, or maybe they don't, there is pawn to C3. And how in God's name are you stopping Queen D2 checkmate? The answer is you're not. So, put it mildly, a brilliant game by Anatoly Karpov, completely outplaying Yasser Seirawan. And the most important moment is this one, pawn to B5. I mean, I don't know how you come up with a move like this. I'm pretty certain it was opening preparation because he was improving on his game against Yasser where he blundered with C5 before. But P5 is just stunning. I mean, it's just brilliant idea. It's just not a natural move at all. And obviously taking the pawn loses. And even if you don't take the pawn, well, you sacrifice a knight. Especially, you can tell that the white king is very unsafe, but you just don't see the attack, right? Because this queen is doing everything on its own. And even if you involve the bishop, there's no immediate mate after something like knight e1. You know, I think it's quite commendable, and he definitely saw a lot of this in advance, right? So he just sacks the knight. After sacrificing the knight, he involves his pieces, plays rook b8, and then he just says, I don't need my rook. He gives that up as well, and it's a beautiful game. So yeah, that's the video. I hope you liked it, and if you liked even one of Karpov's moves, which I'm sure you did, you have to, and I mean you have to, if you liked even one of Karpov's moves, you have to like this video, you have to subscribe to the channel, and you have to leave a comment. And something else you can do is you can also share this video if you feel like if you enjoyed all of Karpov's moves, then you can share the video as well. So yeah, that's the game. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. If you heard my phone's notification, I could edit that out, but I'm not that professional. I'll see you next time. Stay tuned for more chess.